you look closely at this shirt that I'm wearing, you see this kind of weird sort of Frankenstein zigzag line that goes across it. And that's not by design, that's not some kind of trendy bit of fashion on that. I was actually wearing this shirt on August 17th, 2018, when I had my stroke. I was sitting in a car about to drive, and Anna, my girlfriend at the time, and my wife noticed that something was very wrong with my face. She pulled me over out of the traffic where I was about to get into a terrible accident, and I passed out. I was in a coma, and she called 911, and they came, and in order to intubate me, to get something inside me to get rid of the blood clot, they took scissors and they just cut the shirt right off of me, cut it in half, and ripped it off. And a year later, after my stroke, I was asking Anna about this shirt because when I was wearing it at the time, it was my favorite shirt and I hadn't seen it in a while. She told me what had happened to it. I go, it was really sad. And I go, do we have it? And she said, yeah, they gave it some awful plastic bag from the hospital. It's in my closet. I wanted to throw it out. And I go, no, can you actually sew it back together again? She likes to sew. She said, sure. But you sure you want to wear it, Robert? It's got such awful memories. It was the worst day of my life. I go, well, yeah, I want to wear it. Sure, fuck hell, I want to wear it. It's like a remembrance of death. It's a remembrance of my coma. It's a remembrance of how close I came to dying. So she sewed it back up, and I've been proudly wearing it ever since. And whenever I do wear it, it reminds me that I am alive, that I came that close to dying. It's what I would call Memento Mori, continual reminder of how close death is. And so on August 17th, which is the anniversary, I have this very perverse idea that when I tell Anna and other people, they go, God, you're morbid, you're awful. I want to celebrate my death day. That was the day that I came very close to death. It's like the opposite of my birthday, but it is another form of birth. So I think it's very important to have these kinds of Memento Mori. Normally, they're just little things that kind of remind you of your mortality. They don't have a much emotional connection, but they can. But this literally drips with the memory of my coma and of death and of coming close to it. And it reminds me of how fragile life is and how I have to appreciate the fact that I'm still alive here today. The power of being aware of your mortality is not a morbid thing at all. It has many components to it. The first is just being realistic and knowing that you don't have forever to live. And so what that does is it gives you a sense of urgency about your day-to-day life. So I know how close death is to me. I feel it still in my body. There was a physical sensation that came from the coma, a kind of a softness in my bones as if I was melting away, as if life was leaving me. I know it very physically, and when I feel it, well, I could be gone tomorrow. I better write this book. I'm writing this book now. It's taking a long time, but it's like, I may not be alive shortly afterwards. I better write it because it means so much to me. It gives a sense of urgency to your day-to-day life. If you're in your 20s, you go, man, I'm not going to die. I mean, you don't think that, you know you're going to die, but you don't literally think, you go, I'm going to live forever. I've got all this time. I've got decades ahead of me. You don't have any idea how quickly it can pass, and you have no idea how quickly it can be taken away from you, either through some terrible illness or through death itself. Knowing this, knowing it not just as an intellectual idea, because there's the intellectual idea of death, which is, yeah, I'm gonna die. That's kind of weak. It's got a weak little emotional charge. There's the reality, there's the visceral sense of death inside of you. Just as you know that you're alive, you know it because your blood is moving through you and you have a pulse and you feel your skin is warm, etc. Death is also a physical sensation inside of you. You feel it, your cells are dying, you feel it before you go to bed. As you kind of drift into unconsciousness, it's a slight little intimation of the feeling of death as your conscious awareness is leaving you. Death is inside of you, it's real, it's visceral, it's not a little weak, emotional, weak tea idea that you have. It's real, it's visceral, it's inside of you. And samurai warriors who had to face death in a sword fight, and imagine that. These aren't two boxers in a ring. These are two men with long swords who are fighting to the death, right? Whoever wins, and the other one dies, right? So that kind of contest is going to sharpen your mind. What samurai warriors would do, and Miyamoto Musashi was the genius of it, was they would meditate on that visceral feeling of death here in the hara, in the gut, in the belly, which is where you actually literally commit harikiri, right? You literally impale yourself in the belly. They would think of death as very real, so they could get over the fear of it, so they can make it a physical presence in them as well, so they could face the prospect of death without the general fear that we normally have. So making it real, making it visceral, making it give you a sense of urgency, and finally, making you appreciate everything that's around you, opening your eyes up. You know, now when I sit in my office and I see the sky and it's blue and the sun is shining and I hear the birds and my cat comes in and he rubs against my leg and all the little details of life that you normally don't pay attention have this kind of poignancy to them when you face death and when you think about it. It's like this could be gone, and these little things mean so much to me, right? And if I am dead and I'm gone, man, am I gonna, I won't know it, but that's what I would miss the most, right? It's gonna be taken away from you. So have that kind of granular, microscopic look at the world around you, the details, and your awareness of death will fill you with that. Okay, well, the idea is, it's easy for me. You say, wow, Robert, it's easy for you to nearly die. Okay, me, I'm 26 years old. I have nothing like that in my life. How do I possibly relate to it? Well, you have to go through a process. Nothing is easy in life. It's not going to be suddenly. And that's where I say you've got to get out of the kind of weak intellectual relationship where you kind of think about it and you think, well, I've done my job now. I'm over my fear of death. You're fooling yourself. As I said, you need to make it real and visceral. It's a daily practice. So often when I'm meditating, I don't know if you meditate out there, but if you don't, you can incorporate this thought process in your head. I would literally sit on my cushions over there and I would imagine the day that I'm dying. I would imagine, and I have a very real image. I don't do it so much now because I literally almost died. It was before I had my stroke. But I literally imagined it was in the afternoon on a sunny day. I was lying in my bed. I could look out the window and I'm literally dying. And I make it a kind of a real image. It's no longer just a kind of an intellectual idea about something that could happen in the future. I'm imagining this scenario. And if you study the brain, you know the power of visualization and of imagination. And the things go on in the brain as if it was actually real or actually happening to you. So if you literally imagine the circumstances of your death, and I don't recommend making it like a car accident or a jet that crashes or something. It's too violent and it's too it's not how most of us die anyway. Most of us die in a hospital bed. But literally focusing on it, literally creating images in your head, details. The sheet on you, the sweat on your brow, the sky, the nurse in the room, people that you love around you, the looks in their eyes, the sort of peace that might be coming over you. Because contrary to what you might think, the moment of death is actually a strange kind of peacefulness and a kind of acceptance. Not for everyone, it was for me, but you can imagine it differently. All I care is that you imagine it, that you give it a reality, not an idea, but something you visualize. How often you do that is important because it's something that you've got to train your brain to do, because normally you don't like to focus on this. So if you can go visit that room every day or at least once a week and add details to that and literally transport yourself into it, that's the kind of way where you can make this visceral here instead of here. That's one exercise I would recommend.